Hi everyone. What I want to share with you today is how I changed my stem bearing dust cap of my power wheelchair to have knobs in it. After I go through the steps, I'll explain the rationale of why I did this for those of you who are interested. The first step is find the center of the stem-bearing dust cap. You can see in this picture that the center of my dust cap is going to be in the middle of a circle. So to find the center of a circle, you draw two straight lines on the edge of the circle. And then when you draw a straight line in the middle of this, where the lines intersect is the center of the circle. So if your one line's like this, then you want to draw the straight line halfway in between it. And then when you do the straight line over here, where the two lines intersect in the middle, is where the center of the circle is going to be. For a square or a rectangle dust cap, simply joining the opposite corners together like this will give you the center. Step 2 is drill the hole in the center. So what I would advise you to do is to have the hole just a smidge smaller than the bolt thread width. So if your bolt thread is 1/4 of an inch, then I would suggest a 3/16 inch hole so that the screw will form little threads on the inside of the circle as you push it through. This is to give added resistance for when the knob is being removed when you're using this for changing the bearings. The third step is put a washer on the screw and feed the bolt through the hole. So you take your screw, washer goes over top, and then using a screwdriver, feed it through the hole so that it will come out looking like this. The fourth step is put a drop of thread locker on the bolt threads. So look at this photo. It's going on at the top so that as you screw on the knob, it's going to form a semi-permanent bond which won't rust together. Bolts that are covered in thread locker do not rust. What's important though is to choose a removable thread locker. So typically this is a blue colored thread locker, but check the packaging when you buy it. The next step is to screw the knob onto the bolt. So before I did this, I applied a thin bead of silicone around the knob base to form a waterproof seal. That's to say that snow won't get through that little bolt hole that's been drilled and get down and affect the bearing and possibly cause it to seize. The sixth step is to apply a sealant to the bolt head to prevent rust on the inside. Where this is especially going to come into play is when the bolt's being removed for maintenance, so moisture won't get into it and let rust go through from the bottom up. It's not necessarily a required step, but I do take pride in my work, and I want what I'm doing to succeed, so I sometimes do extra steps, sort of like an insurance policy, to be taking care of my wheelchair, because when the wheelchair is taken care of, it'll take care of me. Now the final step is return the stem-bearing dust cap to the wheelchair. In other words, get the dust caps back in and seated in the little housing where the stem bearings live. It's a very fun process, very straightforward, and only basic carpentry skills are required for this modification. Now, to get to the why I decided to do this comes from my experience with my previous wheelchair. I drive my wheelchair 8 kilometers or 5 miles each weeknight when there isn't rain or snow falling. It means that my bearings have to be replaced every 3 to 4 months. It means the dust cap that's just been modified is going to be removed from the wheelchair a few times each year. Where I live, there's only government funding available every 5 years for a new wheelchair, and so I need to make it count and be mindful of what maintenance it's going to need as I go through this. The normal way of removing a dust cap is by doing something such as a screwdriver, where you're tapping the screwdriver in to get the edge up, and then you're prying it up. When you're frequently removing the stem-bearing dust cap from the wheelchair, it's carving the plastic, and you can literally make a channel in the plastic where snow, salt, grit, sand, and dust can get in. And when these things get into the bearings, they can really affect them so they wear out prematurely, or it can become seized in the stem bearing housing. I'm doing this by adding the knobs as preventative maintenance. In other words, that channel isn't going to form, and it's going to protect the integrity of the bearings so they are able to last longer between replacing. There was several times with the previous wheelchair where salt, sand, and grit were getting in. So this is a lesson I've learned to carry forward. This little project cost me about $4 for the dust cap knobs. They're made out of aluminum. I purchased them on eBay from an Asian country to keep the cost down. And then I used 5 drops of thread locker. The reason I used 5 drops and not 4 was because when the knobs had arrived, the threads weren't quite all the way through, and I needed to finish tapping it. I've got a tap and die set. That's how bolts get their threads and nuts get the matching set to be screwed into. So I wasted a drop of thread. The bottom line is I'm getting a lot of bang for my buck over spending $4 for this project. If you have questions about this, I'm willing to answer them in the comments. And also, if you have any ideas for a wheelchair hack or modification that you'd like me to try, suggest it to me. I'm open to ideas, and I honestly am making these videos to help you so that the wheelchair enhances your quality of life. I really enjoy using my hands, and I get a lot of pleasure from it. Thanks so much for the time that you spent with me today. I really appreciate it. Bye for now.